Hi folks, welcome back to We the People. I'm Dave Gallus, your host. Today we're going to talk about imagining. Remember John Lennon's song, Imagine? I'd like to imagine every child, every pregnancy is a gift, is a blessing. Now, this isn't a show to beat up women that feel as though that they've had to have an abortion. This is about supporting women that have had to make that choice and giving them maybe better choices, maybe different opportunities. You know, when I was a kid, back in the 60s, I was born in 51, so back in the 50s and 60s, my family belonged to a yacht club. Now, don't get the idea we were rich. A yacht club. A yacht means a boat, and it can be any size. Our boat was a 20-foot plywood cabin cruiser, had it on the Delaware River, and we would just drive across the Delaware River from Philadelphia to New Jersey. They had a nice sandy beach there. That would be our vacation getaway, and we utilized it as much as possible. We didn't have much money. My dad was a city fireman. 7 in the family, 5 kids. But we had the opportunity to have these mini vacations, and it was really, really important for us. So at that yacht club, that property was leased from an orphanage, St. Vincent's Home, on the Delaware River in Northeast Philadelphia. And at the time when I was a kid, it's like, well, I didn't know anything about orphans. I didn't know what an orphan was. I had a family. I was fortunate enough to have a family. But at that yacht club, we would have Christmas parties every year. We would invite all the kids from the orphanage. There was probably 100 or more at a time at these Christmas parties. And these kids were well-rounded, happy, all sizes, shapes, colors. It was a great time. So I would question my grandfather, who was the commodore of the yacht club at the time, and I said, "Hey, Pop," I said, what's an orphan? And he told me what an orphan was, and then I found out that the St. Vincent's Home was started in 1855. And it was started by 5 local churches that got together and formed this orphanage. And, you know, I wonder, nowadays, you don't see any orphanages. They've disappeared. I think St. Vincent's Home kept going until the 1980s. And then there were some scandals in the country about sexual abuse and physical abuse in orphanages, which, you know, you see the movie Annie and you got to wonder what can happen in an orphanage. But if it's run right, it can be an extended family. I also think of, you know, I like the Harry Potter series, the movies. And when I think of Hogwarts School, I thought, wow, that would be so cool to go to a school like that if I were a kid. But I think that could be extended all the way down to right after birth. So my idea is, okay, why don't we have orphanages? That's been answered already because of the scandals, but also it was very expensive to run these facilities. But I'm thinking, how much money is spent in other ways, say in the abortion industry, say to pay for Planned Parenthood, government subsidies. Everybody's paying into this, forced to pay into this, even though you don't agree with it. And again, this isn't about beating women up. So I went and did a little research to find out, okay, are there orphanages in the U.S., any more in the U.S.? And there's a Huffington Post article that my producer can put up on the screen. It's by a former orphan himself of 10 years. Now, this young fella talks about his experience, and you know, the wording says, are there any orphanages in the U.S.? Well, this fella tells his story. Now, they're not perfect, but neither is any family perfect either. So this place that he was in for 10 years was called the Thornwell Home for Children, and we can see the next slide of that. And the Thornwell Home for Children is an active orphanage now in North Carolina. Now, if you go on that website, you'll understand more about an orphanage. And I just found out from a dear friend of mine, Chuck Wendler, that there's an orphanage in Portales, New Mexico. So Chuck and I are going to do a road trip and find out more about this. But I'm thinking, how do we welcome children into the world? That's one way. If we could have an organization that if women feel as though that they're overwhelmed, they can't have the baby, an alternative to an abortion could be an orphanage, an adoption. There's other choices. So, and everybody can get into trouble. I mean, when I was a young man, it's like, holy smoke, the power the power of a sexual attraction is unbelievable. And I was under that power quite a few times. Not that I had women falling or young girls falling all over me. That didn't happen, although I wished it would back then, but I'm glad it didn't now. It's a tremendous pull. And you know, to the young men, I would say, I understand how you feel. But you have to think about the consequences of it. And it's funny, Robin Williams, one of my favorite comedians, he had a famous quote. And he said, God has a sense of humor. He made man with enough blood to fill his brain and his penis, but not enough to fill both at the same time. Boy, truer words were never spoken. But I'll relate a personal story. I grew up in Philadelphia. I came out here to actually get away from a very protective mother. I always had an adventurous spirit. I just wanted to be free and go do on my own. Well, my mom, thinking that I would be under my aunt's care who lived out here, Doris Simpson and Frank Simpson, they took me into their home along with their kids, and I was going to New Mexico State University. So I was out on a date with a really nice girl, and I really liked her. And we were out, I forget what the date was, but it ended up in the boondocks in my aunt's borrowed car. I borrowed my aunt's car. So we're doing some heavy kissing and petting, and the windows were all steamed up. It must have been cold outside. It was the winter. And the windows were all steamed up, and I thought, this is it. I'm going to score tonight. Didn't think too much about how it would affect the girl I was with, but it was all about me. Well, she had the presence of mind to push me back into the seat. And she was like, her face was flushed, she was sweating, I was sweating, and she's looking at me and I'm like, huh? And she said, Dave, do you love me? And I said, I'm glad I said no. I was honest with her. But it really wasn't a question of love. To me, I knew it was a question of commitment. Well, at least I don't know if I knew then, but I was honest and said, no, I didn't love her. But I realize now that it was a question of commitment. Will you stand by me? Will you commit to me? And I'm glad that I had that presence of mind. I'm glad that she had the presence of mind to stop the action. And really, to me, that is the point. That is the break point, I guess you could say, where the woman is always going to have the last word. Now, rape and incest is a totally different story. That's something, you know, it's a crime. And, you know, I have different thoughts about how to deal with that. But even at that, the child is the victim here. I mean, the girl is certainly the victim, no doubt about it. But that child is guiltless. Now, there could be a way that maybe the court system could be involved, and you can tell who the father was through DNA testing. And that person should be responsible for the care of that child financially until the child's 18 years old. Or if it's a handicapped child, then for life. That person should be made to pay, not interact with the mother, that's for sure. No, absolutely not. But I've been through a divorce and had child care payments that my ex and myself, we had no interaction. The money went to the court then gave her the money. So it can be done, the total isolation of the two. But let's getting back to young people having to make that decision in the heat of the moment. It's a heck of a way to say it, but that's the truth. What are you risking? What can we teach our youth? Now, my parents tried to give me the talk. I tried to give my daughters and my son the talk. But I fell short on my son because I kind of allowed the permissiveness of society's, what would you say, okay with having sex before marriage. Now that's a tall order to ask for, but when you think about it, what's at stake here? A child's life could be at stake here. A person's emotional well-being is at stake here, the girl. The guy, he's not thinking. Like I said, the blood has left his brain. It has gone to other places. So, but the girl has the final say. If she says no, it's no. What I would try if I'm almost 70 years old now, so I've learned a lot. I hope I've gained in wisdom. I'm sure I have, certainly much more than I had before. But what would I tell my kids now? I would say, if I had kids at this age, I would say, respect yourself and respect your partner. And if you're wise in who you're choosing with who you associate with, and you're wise about not being intoxicated to where you can't make right decisions, then if you think of your partner first before yourself, to me that's what love is. And love and sex are two totally different things. This is my third marriage, I'm embarrassed to say, but I finally realized that if I think of my wife first, and sometimes it's a hard thing to do because she's pretty tough, things work out well. I feel better about myself, our relationship is better. So it's more about thinking of your partner before yourself, but that goes with anybody. My pastor, Dwayne Thompson, I go to the Calvary Chapel, Three Crosses out on the East Mesa. He had a lecture, or it was a lecture, 2 weeks ago I think it was. And he said that men give love, or the appearance of love, to get sex. Men give love to get sex. Women give sex to get love. Wow. So true, so easy to understand. And isn't that true? I mean, how many women have given more than what they wanted to because they were in the hopes of getting that love that they wanted, that they required? Now, it could be more than that. It could be the animal instincts in us all. I mean, you know, the drive for sex is unbelievably strong. We were built that way. God made us that way. I mean, I see it in nature with the animals, how they interact. And we're better than that. So what do we risk by having free sex? There's nothing free about sex. You know, I remember the Woodstock era, the 60s and 70s. It was all free sex. No, you run the risk of disease, infection, pregnancy, unwanted pregnancies. So in a perfect world, we would have moral society. We would have men respecting women. We would have women respecting themselves more than they do. We would be celibate before marriage. We would live happily ever after we found the perfect mate. And then we'd have lots of children that would all be wanted. But this isn't a perfect world. We're human beings. We're subject to our animal instincts, sex, but we can grow. And that's where the morality comes into place. And that's where teaching our children in our schools, what do they teach in our schools nowadays? I don't think it's morality. I think it's permissiveness. And anything goes. And that's very, very dangerous. You know, when my daughters were growing up in my first marriage, their mother was a good instructor. Also, they went to Catholic school. So there was a lot of discipline there. I grew up Catholic as well. In my second marriage, my son was unexpected, very surprising. At age 40, I found out I was going to be a father. I was just out of a relationship that I had no money. I was living at my grandmother's house. My girlfriend at the time, she was living at her mother's house with 3 children after leaving a marriage. We didn't have anything, but we were pregnant. And it was like, okay, what do we do? It's like, well, I'm so thankful that I never considered abortion. I'm so thankful that she never considered abortion. And it was tough. It was real tough to go through that and struggle, but there was no regrets there. Well, we're going to talk more about this subject and expand on it somewhat when we come back from a break. So listen, folks, stay tuned. There's a lot more to come, and in the future, I welcome your feedback on this show and any show that I do. So stand by, and we'll be back with more interesting words.
Horizon, granite is here.
It's here.
Horizon Granite is here. We'll come to you to customize your kitchen and bathroom with beautiful countertops and cabinets. Find out more at horizongranite.com. Call us at 575-650-3180.
Horizon Granite is here.
It's here.
Make yourself a beautiful home.
Hi, I'm Ray Bamberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
They've stormed beaches and freed countries. They've raised our flag and our hope. They've been called leathernecks. They've been called devil dogs. But above all, they're called Marines.
Hi folks, welcome back to We the People. Today's subject is imagining. We're imagining what it would be like if every child, every pregnancy, every birth would be welcomed as the blessing and the gift that they are. And yet, this isn't a perfect world. The perfect world would be you have respect for the person you're with. You don't try to force the issue of sex before marriage. You respect yourself as well. You think about what can happen as a result. Infection, pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy. So put the cart before the horse and you're in trouble. If you do it the right way, celibate before marriage, big tall order, I know it. But if you do that and you respect the person enough to want to marry the person, then you have the opportunity for living happily ever after. But it doesn't always work that way. So, and it didn't work that way for me. So, appeal to our better persons, our better selves. But in the meantime, when women seem to feel as though they have no options but abortion, that's not true. And the abortion industry makes a lot of money, and a lot of money is spent for the abortions. I don't know, it's like $1,000 or something like that now to get an abortion. And there can be complications. If you get a chance to see the movie Unplanned, the story was written by Abby Johnson, who used to be one of the higher ups in the abortion industry working for Planned Parenthood. She was an administrator in one of their facilities. And she never really got involved in the actual abortion or an actual abortion itself until they were shorthanded one day and she was called in. Now, she had 1 or 2 abortions before that. And when she actually was involved in it, it just struck right to her heart. And there's a scene where she just runs into a bathroom and sobs. And I wonder how many women actually, in time, think about what they did or what they feel as though they had to do, which wasn't necessarily what the options were, but they weren't educated as to what the complications could be physically, emotionally, spiritually. But this was an easy out. Sometimes you're with a man that says, oh, get an abortion. Well, that's not the kind of man you want standing by you in a crisis. Or your family. Maybe I think a loving family would support that, would support you in having the child. And there are agencies in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I mean, the one I've been to both of them. It's CareNet and Turning Point. And these places are operated by angels. I mean, the things that they offer, pregnancy testing, community resource referrals, abortion risk procedure information, let you know what's going on, peer counseling. So you're being taught or you're engaging with people that have been through what you're going through. They can help you understand how it can affect your life in the future. What can be done to take care of your child and yourself during that time? And as far as I know, most of this is free free of charge. Post-abortion recovery. It's not about beating a woman up, because I can't even imagine what pressures a woman must be under to consider having an abortion. They need to be supported. They need to be understood. Parenting classes. The one turning point I was even in, they have a room that is very, very welcoming and warm and nice music. Just everything was set up very nice. And it was for fathers-to-be, mentoring for fathers-to-be. So there is alternatives. I mean, even right now, with the political division we have in our country, one of the big subjects is abortion, Roe versus Wade. Do you want to make it illegal to have an abortion? Well, I was doing some research, and I found out that before abortions were, I wouldn't say sanctioned, but were allowed and not considered illegal, women were going through tremendous pains. A lot of women dying from back alley abortions. Who the heck wants to go to that? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that an abortion, I certainly can never say that an abortion is a good alternative. And I would never consider that. But what other ways can we help these young women, besides educating them beforehand, but after the fact? There are people out there that want to adopt. From what I understand, there's twice as many people that want to adopt as there are abortions. So the system is not working right. So I have to ask the question, my conspiracy mind thinks, okay, is the abortion industry affecting legislation that allows abortions and actually at the same time suppressing the ability for people to adopt? Now they can say, oh, well, we're trying to protect the child. You're trying to protect the child, and yet you're killing the child. And I know of so many people that wouldn't think of killing an animal, and yet they hide behind the word of giving a woman's rights, of reproductive rights. That's justification for killing a child. That child didn't do anything wrong. And who protects that child? So, my idea is, Mark Cavalier is a fellow that works diligently in El Paso for eliminating abortion, but not forcing women or threatening doctors or threatening anybody. It's only a matter of trying to support the decision that's made through good education. Now, right now in our state legislature in New Mexico, SB 10, Senate Bill 10, has been passed by both the House and the Senate. And some of the people that I've seen voted yes for the abortion. What it is, it actually decriminalizes abortion. And as I was saying, Mark Cavalier, a very smart fellow, very, very good person. He's a Christian. I'm a Christian. Not that you have to be a Christian to be a good person, but certainly helps me. And reading the Bible is an excellent guide for good living. But Mark said, your legislation is not going to stop abortion. It's the public knowledge and education and information. And the public is going to change the abortion industry because they're not going to need it anymore. We are going to welcome every child into the world. He did something pretty drastic from what I understand. And Mark's pretty inventive with ideas. From what I understand, he sent fetuses, model fetuses, to all the legislatures before this bill was being considered. And I think it was a 10-week-old fetus. And one of the legislators took it and threw it in the trash. And he was just abhorred as to this. And I thought, isn't that a good thing to do, to be abhorred as what we've allowed in our country? Where is our compassion? We love animals. Don't we love children? So that was very poignant to me that this legislator would be so taken aback that he would throw it in the trash can, and that's exactly what we're doing. And again, I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm not even criticizing the legislators that want to allow such things. I criticize the legislators for not finding better solutions. So to me, what you need to do is you need to find out what the legislators are about and vote for the ones that follow what your morals and your ideology will permit. I think most people, if given the option to save a life or to destroy a life, would want to save the life or to allow the life to grow. I've had 2 children myself that passed away. Dawn at 8 months through complications that was involved Down syndrome, and Jason, who just passed away this past year, he was 29, involved in drugs. Jason struggled for half of his life, 14 years, with drugs, in and out of halfway houses. Do I wish Jason was never born? Absolutely not. It was a wonderful gift. I'm very sad because he's gone. I'm very sad because he struggled. I'm very sad because maybe I could have helped him and I didn't at that given time do the right thing. I always had the best intentions, but did I do the right thing? I go through that roller coaster of emotion. Dawn was born with Down syndrome, and it wasn't found out later that she had a massive hole involving all chambers of her heart. And once she got a cold, she got pneumonia. She had to have part of her lung removed. She was on a tracheotomy, a feeding tube, and she suffered for 5 months of her 8 months of life at St. Christopher's Hospital in Philadelphia, and I could do nothing to help her. Do I wish Dawn was never born? Absolutely not. I can still see her smile in my mind's eye and remember her laughter when she was healthy. She had an opportunity for life, and I hope to see her again, and Jason as well. But I'm so pleased that they had an opportunity for life, and I wouldn't take that away from anybody. But I would try to help women understand that there are alternatives, there's adoptions, and I would like to see orphanages come back in. So we're getting close to the end of the show, folks. And the whole point about everything, and my producer will bring it up on the screen, is get educated. That is so important about everything. Every subject we deal with, get educated. Issachar is a publication that I'm one of the writers for. And that Issachar publication that we put out once a month, I'll be glad to send you a free copy. My phone number can come up on the screen. But even before that, places where you get good information: One American News Network, OANN. You can go to OANN.com, Newsmax, Epoch Times, I think they call it. And if you'd like to be a guest on my show, please, by all means, give me a call. We'll set it up. I'll be glad to have you in. You can be any persuasion you want. You can be nice. You can argue nicely. So folks, I'll see you next week, and it'll be another exciting show. So stay tuned next week.